So I wanted to do a quick recap of the big cruiserweight title fight that we had today for the WBO World Cruiserweight Championship, with Oleksandr Usyk coming up big with the victory with the unanimous decision over Krzysztof Glowacki over there in Poland, in Gdansk, Poland. Glowacki fighting in front of his home crowd, in front of his home country, but he wasn't able to get it done. Usyk pretty much controlled the action from start to finish for the most part. I wound up scoring it essentially 9 rounds to 3 for Usyk. The judges had it, the give or take a round or two, around the same level of clear victory. But Usyk definitely did a job on Glowacki. Glowacki, it seemed like he might have been coming on a little bit late there, especially in that last round. He kind of scored a push down. He wasn't a knockdown; it was kind of a push, but he landed a shot as Usyk was falling. Usyk seemed a little bit shaken up by that as he got up. But overall, he was just too far ahead. By that point, Glowacki was going to need a knockout in order to win. And, Usyk just did a solid job of outboxing the man, outpointing him. And even though it looked like early on he was kind of slapping with his shots, he wasn't necessarily putting a lot of authority on him. Just overall, he was able to, get get Glowacki tired enough that it seemed like he may be able to potentially score a late stoppage, but it wasn't necessarily to be. Glowacki is a tough rock to crack, and Usyk is now the new champion, new WBO Cruiserweight champion, and essentially the number one man in the division. Of course, a lot of people would love to see potential showdowns between him and some of the other champions. The Cruiserweight division's heated up a bit. Pretty much this last year. You got him out there. You got Denis Lebedev, who has the WBA Super and the IBF Championships. You got Bebut Shumanov, who has the WBA Regular. Yunier Doricos with the WBA Interim. So hopefully the WBA will try to clean that whole mess up, fairly soon, the way they've been doing with some of the lighter weight classes. You got Tony Bellew with the WBC Championship. He was actually doing commentary for this fight on Sky. He definitely had Usyk well ahead. He said that he wouldn't mind, having a showdown with Usyk sometime in the future. But the thing with Usyk is his just level of class, his level of boxing ability is so high. It's really tough to imagine any of the guys at cruiserweight really giving him a ton of trouble unless they have some sort of real physical advantage or just explosive power that they could really make an imprint on the fight with. To be honest, the only guy that I could see potentially really doing something like that would probably be Yunier Doricos, especially considering the way he managed to do a fantastic job in a Fight of the Year candidate that he had a few months back. It was a pretty overlooked fight between himself and Yuri Kalenga. Kalenga's another pretty good fighter too that could potentially give a fairly good fight to Usyk. But just overall, I would have to favor Usyk over basically everybody in the division. Just good speed, good power. When he chooses to sit down on his punches, just all around fantastic skill set, and one that should he decide to move up to heavyweight, either now or a bit later in the future, I think will serve him very well. I think at the moment they're probably looking to rack off a couple of defenses in the cruiserweight division. They can make some pretty good money with him there for the moment. And then once the heavyweight division becomes clear enough that they could get some of the big money fights, then at that point is when they'll move up. I'd imagine it'll probably be the type of situation where he goes right into a title shot at heavyweight once he's done making his bones at cruiserweight. And then, of course, he's not necessarily the biggest guy on the planet. He probably takes that. I doubt it takes a hell of a lot for him to make 200 pounds. He's a big guy, but he's not at the same time. He's not, necessarily one of these super heavyweight types of the new generation of heavyweight fighters. But he's a guy that I imagine should he not have to make 200 pounds, he'd probably figure that it's easier on his body and everything. It's just one less thing to worry about, essentially. He could just worry about his skills, period, point blank, and not necessarily have to worry about making weight as much as just being the biggest, fastest, strongest person that he could potentially be. And so really, we might not even necessarily be seeing the strongest of what he has to offer right now at cruiserweight. So it'll be interesting to see how he progresses into the future. I could imagine like a fantastic future fight between himself and another former cruiserweight champion and David Haye. If not, some of the other top fighters. Of course, Anthony Joshua would probably be a monster fight over in the UK. But and it's especially depending on what Usyk does in the near future, especially if he was to fight somebody like a Bellew first and defeat him. But just wanted to do that quick recap since I just saw the fight. Solid performance from Usyk. Like I said, I favor him basically over everybody at cruiserweight and below. And I mean, even at heavyweight, there's only, really only the very top of the top are guys that I would favor to defeat him. But it's definitely not going to be an easy task for anybody. He's one of those guys that he's just a fantastic fighter. He's going to be one of those guys that's managing to take his skills all the way to the heavyweight division, even though he's not necessarily one of the biggest guys on the block. Like similar to one Evander Holyfield, or David Haye, as I mentioned before. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.